The story begins by explaining that skills are unique special abilities granted by the mystical ancestral fruit, and humanity is meant to walk alongside these skills toward a luminous future. We then meet our protagonist Light and his childhood friend Lena as they head to the church to receive their skills. On the way, Lena curiously asks Light what type of skill he hopes to get. Light shares that he'd love either the swift skill or dual wielding, but having perfect aim would be incredible too. His preferences clearly reveal his desire for a combat-type skill, as he dreams of becoming an adventurer. Lena remarks that adventuring has been his lifelong dream, and Light is thrilled that he's finally on the brink of making it a reality. He turns the question back to Lena, asking what skill she'd like, and she replies that she wants a skill that will let her take on the same job as him. So Light happily suggests that they could become adventurers together in this case, but the uncertainty of the skill fruit looms large as no one knows what skill they'll receive until they eat it. Arriving at the church, they are greeted by a nun. She shows them a collection of skill fruits, explaining their purpose. These fruits grant unique abilities to anyone who eats them, aligning them with a profession tied to the skill. But there's a grave warning. A person can eat only one skill fruit in their lifetime, and consuming a second will poison and kill them. She then recounts grim tales of those who defied this rule out of dissatisfaction with their skills, and they all met a fatal end. Lena, slightly startled, asks Light if he knew this rule, and he confirms he did, stating it's common knowledge for anyone aspiring to be an adventurer. He adds that without combat skills, the idea of adventuring is laughable, as all successful adventurers boast formidable abilities, and he dreams of standing among them someday. The nun assures them that as long as they abide by the rule of one fruit, they'll be fine. She then announces it's time for them to eat the fruits, and Lena steps forward first, picking a fruit and taking a bite. Instantly, she begins to glow, and a radiant heat surges through her. Her skill manifests, and the nun appraises it with awe, revealing that Lena has gained the rare and prestigious Sword Saint skill. The nun is shocked to witness a Sword Saint emerging from such an insignificant place, declaring that she's been waiting for an adventurer of this caliber. She promptly orders her subordinates to inform the guilds, emphasizing the gravity of the moment, while Light stands beside her and watches in awe. Lena, brimming with hope, wishes that Light also receives a combat-type skill. Filled with hope, he bites into his fruit, eager to discover his fate. However, the nun reveals that his skill is Fruit Master, and she explains that it's tied to cultivation, enabling him to harvest more fruits and speed up their growth. The revelation crushes Light because this skill holds no value in combat, and his dreams of adventuring feel shattered. He desperately contemplates trying again, but the nun sternly reminds him that doing so would be fatal. Lena, trying to console him, assures him she'll stay by his side, even offering to help him grow fruits. The nun, clearly disgusted, and reacts harshly. She refuses to let Lena squander her extraordinary potential, declaring that Sword Saints are a rare phenomenon appearing only once in a decade. And with firm authority, she insists Lena must fulfill her destiny as an adventurer and move to the Holy City immediately. Despite her protests, Lena is forcibly taken away, but as she departs, she tells Light she'll be waiting for him. Fast forward 3 months, and Light has resigned himself to a life as a farmer. He diligently tends to his fruit plantation, using his skill to accelerate growth and produce larger yields. Though he admits he's well suited for this life, he can't help but recall the adventurous dreams he's now buried. Resigned to his circumstances, he decides to sell his harvest in town. But unfortunately, the earnings are meager, and he muses that he might have better luck if his skill extended to vegetables. On his way back to the village, Light stumbles upon a poster featuring Lena, and to his surprise, she's already become an S-ranked adventurer, showcasing her rapid success. As he walks further, he overhears 2 children chatting excitedly about their future dreams of becoming adventurers, and the girl enthusiastically declares her wish to be like Lena. And hearing this, Light feels the distance between their lives growing, realizing just how far apart they've become. Later, we find Light training in the forest near his village, chasing the dream of becoming Lena's equal as an adventurer. Fueled by determination, he takes a swing at a tree trunk, determined to find a way to become an adventurer, even without a combat-type skill. He hopes that if he can split it in half, they'll be a step closer to his goal. He puts everything into the strike, only to end up trembling in pain, so his goal is still out of reach. He then collapses onto the ground, convinced it's impossible for him and lamenting that Lena has probably forgotten his face by now. At that moment, a young girl named Ayla approaches, carrying water. Light explains that he was forced to take her in by the village chief, and now they live together. He avoided looking into her origins, thinking it might bring unnecessary trouble. Ayla then tells him dinner is ready, and soon they're sharing a meal. During their conversation, she asks about the harvest, and Light proudly states that it's been excellent, especially with the skill fruits he's recently started cultivating. He mentions that he's grown them to save money for a quality sword, and shows her the fruits he's carefully sorted into separate boxes, warning her not to eat them without permission. Ayla gets wide-eyed and admits she used some of the skill fruits in the stew because they look delicious. Light is stunned, immediately fearing for his life. Panic sets in as his body begins to heat up, just like it did when he first gained his skill. He collapses, thinking these are his final moments, and apologizes to Ayla for not teaching her about the fruits. With his last ounce of strength, he tells her not to worry and blames himself for the mishap. But instead of dying, he realizes he feels fine and even gains a new skill. And at that same moment, the nun from earlier senses something unusual. Back in his house, Light struggles to understand why he didn't die. But before he can unravel the mystery, Ayla suddenly manifests a skill of her own from eating the stew. Then a magic circle appears around her eye, granting her the ability to perceive detailed information about skills. She glances at Light and casually reveals that his Fruit Master skill makes him immune to all fruit-related poisons. Light gets stunned and demands to know how she knows this, and she explains that letters simply appeared in her vision when she looked at him. But that's not all, because Ayla notes that Light now has an additional skill. It's called Sword God, which boosts his attack power when wielding a sword and also grants him heightened resistance to magic. Light quickly realizes that Ayla has an appraisal type skill, and his excitement over his own new skill drives him to rush outside to test it. He heads into the forest and strikes the same tree trunk, slicing it cleanly in one blow. But his power doesn't stop there. His blow carries through to another tree behind it, toppling it as well. So Light gets thrilled and thinks he might be the only person alive with two skills, and the thought fills him with joy. The next day, Light and Ayla travel to the Holy City. Ayla is amazed by the food stalls and bustling streets, but Light urges her to hurry as they head to the Adventurers Guild. The lively atmosphere makes Light smile, and Ayla notices how happy he is to be there, so he admits it has always been his dream to visit this place. Looking at the bounty board, he explains to Ayla how adventurers earn rewards by completing quests, which they can use for better gear and food. Today, however, he didn't come here for money. He is here because he wants to test his new skill and take a step toward becoming Lena's equal. So he asks Ayla to wait while he approaches the reception desk to take a quest. While waiting, Ayla uses her skill to inspect the adventurers around her. She quickly realizes that none of them have more than one skill, which makes Light's situation even more remarkable. Just then, an adventurer named Jean bumps into Light and blames him for the collision. Light calmly points out that it was Jean's fault, but Jean refuses to admit it. Recognizing Light as a fruit seller from the market, Jean mocks him, saying he doesn't belong in the guild. But before Light can respond, Ayla appears and asks if there's an issue, but Light tries to avoid unnecessary conflict and brush it off. Jean, however, has no intention of letting it go and escalates things by attacking Light, but Light blocks the attack with ease, surprising Jean and his party. And that shit makes Light realize that holding a sword enhances his reaction speed, and he is so pleased by this discovery. Jean gets embarrassed, pretends he wasn't serious, and backs off, while his party members urge him to leave and focus on their mission. With the confrontation over, Light tells Ayla it's time for them to leave as well because he has secured their first quest, and together, they leave the guild and head toward the vast lands outside the city. Light is thrilled at the prospect of encountering monsters for the first time, and he instructs Ayla to stay behind him since the area could be dangerous. They begin searching, and Ayla spots a slime, revealing it as their target for the slime hunting quest. And she also notices that this particular slime has higher defense than normal. Light then approaches the creature quietly, drawing his sword and trusting in his sword god's skill to see him through. With a single strike, he takes down the slime, marveling at how effortless it felt. He notes that he can't even feel the weight of the sword thanks to his skill, and the boost to his leg strength is incredible. However, he acknowledges that he used more power than necessary and decides he needs to learn to control his strength. Ayla praises his performance, and Light responds that they now just need to take a piece of the slime as proof to claim their reward. Ayla hesitates, feeling bad about cutting up the slime, but Light reminds her that the money from this quest will buy them 10 pizzas. So her mood immediately shifts, and she eagerly agrees, slicing off a part of the slime. She's excited at the thought of exchanging it for food and becomes motivated to return to town quickly. Suddenly, they hear a scream nearby and notice Jean's party struggling against an ogre. The group is terrified, unprepared to face such a strong monster on their first mission. They lament their terrible luck, grumbling about encountering an ogre on their very first mission and sarcastically blaming their earlier run-in with that weird kid. The ogre then lunges at them, and they narrowly avoid the attack. Realizing they are outmatched, they make the decision that background characters like them excel at, running away as fast as possible as if their asses are on fire. The ogre chases after their asses, but they notice Light's party ahead. So Jean decides to make the dirtiest move ever and lead the ogre straight to Light and Ayla. And without hesitation, the group bolts past Light, leaving him to deal with the beast alone. Light assesses the situation and realizes he has no choice but to fight, so he draws his sword and is determined to make this battle the ideal start to his adventuring journey. And as the Ogre attacks, Light deftly dodges. Ayla warns Light to be careful, reminding him that the sword god's skill doesn't boost his physical defense, so one hit from the Ogre could kill him. Light, however, refuses to entertain the idea of dying in a place like this, since his dream of becoming the greatest adventurer burning brightly, so he leaps at the Ogre, fully committed to taking it down. The Ogre swings his weapon, but Light skillfully cuts through it mid-attack. And with a powerful demon slash, he cuts the Ogre cleanly in half. Ayla rushes to his side, asking if he's okay, and he assures her that he's fine. While Jean and his party stand frozen, unable to believe what they just witnessed and wondering who this guy could possibly be. Later, Light proudly tells the receptionist at the guild that he defeated an Ogre. She finds it hard to believe, but Jean's party confirms the story, having seen the entire fight, but Jean is visibly reluctant to give Light any credit. The receptionist hurries off to report this to the higher-ups, leaving Light with a feeling that he's finally a full-fledged adventurer. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the guild shifts and the room grows quieter, so Light curiously asks what's happening. So Jean informs him that the S-rank party has returned, and Light's heart skips a beat as he spots Lena among them. Eager to reconnect, he approaches and calls out to her, asking if she remembers him. But to his shock, Lena looks at him with indifference, claiming he must be mistaken and that she doesn't know him. Meanwhile, the nun's aide notices her loss in thought and asks what she has seen. The nun solemnly reveals that she just had a revelation. A powerful and dangerous force has been born, one that will shake the entire world. Back at the guild, Light is standing there in utter disbelief, his jaw practically hitting the floor. He can't wrap his head around the fact that Lena seemingly forgot about him after just 3 months. Ayla, clueless about what's going on, tries to lift his spirits by suggesting they grab some pizza together. Light agrees and takes Ayla for some pizza, but he's still moping like a kid who just dropped his ice cream. Ayla, growing impatient, threatens to eat all the pizza herself if he doesn't snap out of it. Light spent a small fortune on this meal, so even though he's upset over Lena, there's no way he's letting all that pizza go to waste. He starts scarfing it down so quickly that he ends up choking, but luckily someone hands him a glass of water to help him out. And when Light looks up to thank his savior, he's shocked to see it's Lena. Just as he's about to yell her name, Lena slaps a hand over his mouth, whispering for him to keep quiet or else Grouse will hear them. She sits down at their table, and Ayla takes the opportunity to introduce herself since it's her first time meeting Lena. Lena then embarrassedly asks who this girl is, but before she can finish, Light interrupts her, asking what she's doing here. But interestingly, Lena also has the same question about Light, as she never expected to run into him at the guild. So Light, with a bit of pride, explains that he and Ayla became adventurers. He then goes on to recount the wild skill fruit incident that granted him a second skill, and Lena seems genuinely thrilled for him, knowing this means he can finally chase his dream. Light then shifts the conversation, asking Lena about her experience with the S-rank party's Sacred. But the way Lena's expression darkens makes it clear she's not loving life. She describes how she's essentially been thrown into a group of random adventurers chosen by the Holy Sister. The pay might be great, but the team's vibe is so toxic it makes a Fortnite lobby look friendly by comparison. She then strongly warns Light to steer clear of Sacred if he values his happiness as an adventurer. Light still doesn't fully grasp what's so awful about Sacred, especially since they have such a stellar reputation. Sensing his confusion, Lena recounts an incident from 2 months ago involving a giant serpent. Serpents are weak to fire, so Grouse ordered their mage to attack with a fire spell. The mage, however, went overboard and ended up setting a nearby farm ablaze. And when Lena tried to alert the team so they could stop the fire, Rouse dismissed her concerns outright. To him, their only job was to kill the serpent, and they'd done that, so any collateral damage was irrelevant and not their problem. Hoping for better judgment, Lena brought the issue up with the Holy Sister, but her response was even colder. The Holy Sister couldn't care less about the destruction or the lives of peasants as long as the party's actions were immortalized in history as heroic deeds. Lena keeps these dark truths to herself, unwilling to tell Light just how twisted her party's mindset is. However, Light can see her unhappiness and invites her to join him and Ayla if she wants. As much as Lena longs to accept, she explains that certain circumstances prevent her from leaving Sacred. She insists that she's fine, but Light notices tears streaming down her face as she says it. It's obvious something is deeply wrong, but she refuses to drag him into her problems. With that, Lena excuses herself from the table, leaving Light feeling helpless. Not long after, Light goes to the front desk to collect his reward for slaying the Ogre. He's handed 10,000 gold pieces, more money than he's ever seen in his life. Yet despite this windfall, Light feels no joy because he's too consumed by worry over Lena. He knows something is wrong, but without understanding what Sacred is forcing her to endure, he can't help her. Then Ayla suggests that he just needs to ask Grouse directly since the lounge door is wide open. Inside the lounge, Grouse is lounging with two women, regaling them with exaggerated tales of his so-called legendary battles. He then describes a recent hunt where his party torched an evil grizzly bear with a massive inferno before Grouse delivered the heroic finishing blow. Just then, the receptionist enters the lounge with urgent news for Grouse about his latest mission. She informs him that the villagers near the site where they killed the grizzly have lodged a formal complaint. They claim that Sacred's fire-based attack dried up their reservoir entirely, leaving them with no water. Grouse brushes off the complaint with an excuse about collateral damage being unavoidable when fighting powerful monsters. However, his casual smirk betrays his true feelings. He actually relishes causing trouble for the weaklings he deems beneath him. Light overhears everything and is enraged. He knows Lena would never disregard the struggles of regular people like that, and it sickens him to think she's stuck with a party that thrives on arrogance. And he furiously demands that Grouse let Lena leave Sacred since she's clearly miserable. Grouse scoffs at the suggestion, dismissing Light as an annoying rookie, and casually calls for security to have him thrown out. As Light is escorted out, Ayla rushes to his side, worried if he's all right. Light assures her he's fine, but some nearby adventurers warn him that antagonizing Grouse is a terrible idea. Grouse may be a jerk, but crossing him means angering the Holy Sister. And if she has a grudge against you, your adventuring career is as good as dead. The next day, Sacred gathers in the lounge as usual, basking in their self-proclaimed greatness. But Lena is lost in thought, replaying Light's words about quitting Sacred if it was compromising her values. Summoning all her courage, she stands up and declares in front of everyone that she's leaving Sacred immediately. She explains that she wants to live by her moral code as an adventurer, one that doesn't involve turning a blind eye to injustice. Lena then begins to walk toward the exit, but before she can leave, Grouse blocks her path. His expression darkens as he threatens to kill her for daring to defy him. Lena reaches for her sword, ready to defend herself, but quickly realizes that even with her sword Saint's skill, she stands no chance against Grouse in a one-on-one fight. So she reluctantly removes her hand from her blade, only for Grouse to backhand her to the ground with a cruel smirk. Towering over her, Grouse launches into a half-hearted lecture about perseverance, claiming that she must persevere for the sake of all the people their party will save in the future. And then he coldly tells her that she'll have to keep persevering until the day she dies in battle. And on that same day, the Sacred Party is preparing to leave town, and Lena has resigned herself to a life under Grouse's oppressive leadership. But as they begin their departure, their path is suddenly blocked by Light. Grouse annoyedly demands to know why Light is standing in their way, so Light confidently declares that he's there to get his friend back. He then reminds Lena that he and Ayla had planned to hunt monsters together, and he would love having her with them. And then he reminds her that they had made a promise to become adventurers as a team, and he's so determined to keep that promise. She remembers their promise and longs to go with Light, but she doesn't feel strong enough to stand against Grouse, so she pleads with Light to leave before he gets hurt. Grouse then smirks, satisfied by Lena's rejection, and dismissively tells Light to get lost, but Light isn't backing down, and instead he challenges Grouse to a duel for Lena's freedom. Grouse initially scoffs at the idea, dismissing Light as an insignificant nobody unworthy of his time. But when Light taunts him, questioning whether he's afraid of losing to a mere nobody, Grouse's pride is wounded. So he accepts the challenge, and he fully intends to use the duel to humiliate Light and make an example of him. But then Grouse adds that if Light loses, he will be permanently banned from the Adventurers Guild and exiled from the city. And without hesitation, Light agrees to the terms, but Lena begs him to reconsider, fearing he has no chance of winning against someone as skilled as Grouse. Grouse then draws his sword and prepares to strike, but before he can, Ayla quickly scans him, warning Light that Grouse possesses the Godspeed skill, an ability that lets him close the distance to his opponent almost instantly. Light takes the warning seriously, gripping his sword tightly as he gets ready to face off. And to ensure fairness, Light openly announces his skills, revealing himself as a fruit master and a sword god. Grouse, however, scoffs at the declaration, doubting anyone could possess two skills at once. Grouse then closes the gap instantly, launching a lightning-fast attack that Light barely manages to block. Grouse follows up with a relentless flurry of strikes, forcing Light into a defensive stance as he struggles to keep up with the barrage, and despite his best efforts, Light is clearly outmatched. He then finally creates some distance, but it's short-lived because Grouse reappears behind him in the blink of an eye, delivering a brutal knee to Light's side. With Grouse's Godspeed skill, there are no safe zones on the battlefield, and he can strike from anywhere within range, leaving Light no room to breathe. Light acknowledges that Grouse is an absolute monster in combat, but his resolve remains unshaken. Determined not to back down, he charges in to attack, but unfortunately Grouse easily sidesteps his swing, and before Light can recover, Grouse shatters his sword. The battle seems all but lost, but instead of finishing him off, Grouse offers a cruel deal. He'll spare Light's life if Lena pledges her eternal loyalty to him. Light, however, reassures Lena that she doesn't need to submit because he's going to win this fight. Though the odds are stacked against him, Lena decides to believe in Light, trusting that he can turn things around. Frustrated with what he sees as blatant defiance, Grouse gears up to end the duel with one decisive strike. Meanwhile, Light frantically searches for a weapon to replace his broken sword. His eyes land on a broomstick held by a spectator, and without hesitation, he grabs it. Grouse thinks this is some kind of joke, and he's partially right. Light could have easily borrowed Lena's sword, but he chooses the broomstick instead, confident that he can still win with it. With the broom in hand, Light begins visualizing it as a proper weapon, preparing himself for Grouse's next move. Up until now, Light has been trailing because he's been focusing too much on Grouse's movements, but his sword god skill grants him extraordinary reflexes, so he decides to stop overthinking and let his instincts take over. Then the moment Grouse enters his range, Light reacts instantly, swinging the broom with pinpoint precision. The strike lands squarely on Grouse's face, hitting him so hard that he's sent flying into a brick wall. Grouse is out cold, and just like that, Light is declared the winner of their duel. And just to make his point crystal clear, Light turns to the other members of Sacred and warns them that if they dare come after Lena again, they'll have to deal with him personally. With that, he looks at Lena and tells her she's finally free. Once again, he extends an invitation to join his party, and this time Lena happily accepts. A week then has passed since Light's intense duel with Grouse, and not much has changed. He's still growing his fruits, except now he has Lena by his side, which makes him much happier. Lena then prepares lunch for everyone, and while they sit down to eat, she asks Light how he's feeling after sustaining injuries during his battle with Grouse. Light reassures her that he's feeling great now and is excited to finally go on missions with her, which would normally be a dream come true for him. However, a significant problem still looms over their heads. For the past week, Lena has been receiving visitors sent by the Holy Sister, all trying to pressure her into returning to Sacred so they can discuss her decision to leave. But Lena stands firm, declaring there's nothing to discuss and her mind is made up and nothing can change that. Unfortunately, their defiance hasn't gone unnoticed. The Holy Sister's influence now has them marked as targets, and when Light, Lena, and Ayla visit the guild to pick out a quest, they're only offered the worst jobs on the board, like hunting sewer rats. These quests pay next to nothing, making finances tight. But while Light feels frustrated, Lena remains unfazed. She takes pride in helping rebuild destroyed homes, clearing out sewers, or even reuniting families with their missing pets. She finds joy in truly making a difference for the townsfolk, no matter how small the task. By the end of the day, the group earns just 100 coins, a pitiful amount that barely covers 3 pizzas. Yet despite the low pay, Lena's smile says it all. She's happier than ever now that she's free to help people directly, and Light is enjoying the newfound camaraderie as well. Meanwhile, back at the Holy Sister's Cathedral, she discusses her next move with her assistant. She reveals her plan to assign Lena's new party an actual mission, a treacherous S-rank job, one of the most dangerous types of quests out there. Whether she genuinely expects them to succeed or is secretly hoping that Light meets an untimely end, her intentions remain ominously unclear. The scene then shifts to Light and his friends arriving at the Adventurers Guild, where the receptionist greets them, saying she's been expecting them. She explains that their upcoming quest is a race against time, so Lena gets curious and asks what kind of monsters they'll be dealing with. However, the receptionist admits she doesn't know because there's no proof that a monster is even behind this. Light presses for more details, and the receptionist elaborates. 2 months ago, an adventuring party was sent to the North Montes Valley region to conduct a monster density survey, but never returned. A second group was sent to find them, but they too disappeared. So far, 18 adventurers ranging from rank A to B have vanished. She hands them a list of names, and Lena's eyes widen when she recognizes 2 familiar names, Bork and Shara. Noticing her reaction, Light asks if she knows them. Lena nods, explaining that Bork and Shara taught her a lot when she was just starting as an adventurer, and she wonders what could have happened to them. The receptionist continues, stating that all the missing adventurers were headed to the former Count Amontes' manor. And she explains that the manor was built 30 years ago by a wealthy adventurer, though there are no records of what skill he possessed. After the Count passed away, the manor fell into disrepair, so the conditions for completing this quest are to find the missing adventurers and discover the cause of the disappearances. Lena, clearly uneasy, warns that this quest could be extremely dangerous, especially since even A and B ranked adventurers didn't return. She tries to dissuade Light from accepting, but to her dismay, he's already fired up and eager to get started. The receptionist's gaze then shifts to Ayla, and she asks if the little girl will be joining them. Light confirms that she will, explaining that Ayla is reliable thanks to her appraisal skill. The receptionist is surprised that someone so young ate a skill fruit. Light clarifies it was an accident, and the receptionist nods in understanding. And with that settled, their party Lexiri leaves on their very first real quest. 3 hours later, we see the group searching for the mansion, struggling to navigate through the dense fog, but eventually they spot it below them, hidden in the mist. Light is impressed by its size, commenting that it truly lives up to the stories. As they begin their descent, Light warns Ayla to be careful on the narrow path. He observes the structure as he moves and realizes it looks more like a castle than a mansion. Light then notes how much wealth adventurers must earn if one could afford to build something this massive. Lena agrees, adding that she was able to buy her own house within a few months of adventuring. Light gets inspired and dreams aloud of building a large home for himself someday, complete the farm and training grounds. Ayla also excitedly says she'd love to live in a candy house and jumps in excitement. However, her movement causes the foothold beneath her to crumble. Light grabs her as she falls, and Lena grabs onto him to help, but the unstable ground gives way and all three of them tumble downward. Thinking quickly, Light uses wind from his sword strikes to slow their fall. They land safely, but as they recover, they realize they are surrounded by monsters. Light, excited to fight, immediately takes one out, but Lena stops him and points out that the monsters look like humans. Light wonders if they could be the missing adventurers, so Ayla appraises them and confirms they are undead, and also explains that they can turn others into undead by biting the living, so she warns them to be extra cautious. Light is now horrified, because the thing he just killed was once human. Ayla adds that the undead retain the skills they had in life, and Lena notices their abilities match those of the missing adventurers. Light struggles with the idea of fighting their fellow adventurers and hesitates, so one of the undead attacks him, but Lena steps in and takes it out. Light thanks her, and Lena tells him she understands his hesitation, but insists they can't leave the adventurers in this state. Light agrees, and Lena suggests they head into the manor to search for survivors. They then push open the gates of the mansion and are immediately greeted by a horde of undead. Lena springs into action, moving with precision and speed as she takes down each enemy. Light watches her in awe, knowing how skilled she is. He realizes she's targeting each enemy's weak point with incredible accuracy, even while fighting at high speed. Her mastery over her skills is undeniable, and while Light knows his abilities are technically stronger, he admits that right now he can't compare to her. Light then decides that he can't just sit idly by, because if he doesn't step up, he fears she'll leave him behind entirely, so he starts slashing through enemies with renewed resolve. As they fight, one of the undead targets Ayla, but before it can reach her, Lena intercepts and saves her just in time. Light is amazed at her accuracy and control as she delivered a precise strike that pierced the gaps in its armor. So Lena tells him that she's fought more battles in the past 3 months than she ever wanted to, and Light is glad to have her by his side. She then checks on Ayla, who assures her she's fine, and then tells Lena that she's really cool. Light thinks about how dangerous the situation is, realizing that they must fight while protecting Ayla, so making a single mistake could be fatal, and he resolves not to hesitate again. Lena then tells him they should head to the second floor since this area is cleared, and Light agrees but pauses to ask her why there are so many undead here. After all, only 18 adventurers went missing, and this number far exceeds that. Lena speculates that some of the undead must have been here long before the adventurers arrived, and Light wonders what could have happened in this place to cause such a massive number of undead to appear. Then as they ascend to the next floor, they pass a portrait of the Count. Elsewhere in the mansion, in a dimly lit room, the shadow of a woman is seen dancing gracefully, and she seems to be waiting patiently for Light to make his way to her. Then we see Light and his friends move cautiously on the second floor when a monster suddenly appears. Reacting quickly, Light defeats it, but he notices that they're once again surrounded by a group of enemies. As he cuts through the horde, he observes that these monsters are far more coordinated than the ones they encountered earlier. Ayla then uses her appraisal skill and discovers that the monsters are being controlled by someone. Light notices thin strings attached to the creatures and points them out, so Ayla explains that the threads are used to transmit magical energy, meaning the master controlling these creatures must be at the other end. Deciding to follow the threads, they evade the monsters and trace the strings to a closed room. Upon entering, they find themselves in a grand ballroom. Inside, they spot a woman who introduces herself as Draktina, a member of the Wings of Black Swan, an elite force of darkness. Light feels relieved to finally encounter another living person, but something about her demeanor is unsettling. Then without hesitation, Draktina summons a fresh wave of undead. Ayla quickly appraises the situation and reveals that Draktina is the one controlling the undead through her necromancy skill. Using this ability, she can manipulate corpses and spirit-type monsters while also utilizing their inherent skills. Draktina notices Ayla's appraisal skill and remarks that it will make her a troublesome opponent. Light tries to de-escalate the situation and suggests they cooperate if she's also here on an Adventurers Guild assignment, but Draktina scoffs at the idea, revealing she isn't from the guild, and actually she's here to kill a Fruitmaster. And without further explanation, she sends one of her undead to attack Light. He manages to take it down, but is left wondering why she's targeting him. Dretena merely replies that she's following orders but refuses to reveal anything else. Lena confusedly notes she's never heard of a group called Black Swan or a skill like necromancy. But Dretena ignores her and turns to Light to mock him for taking so long to arrive, complaining that she's grown bored of waiting. And with a sinister grin, she declares that he'd better entertain her as compensation and sends a wave of undead to attack. Light tells Lena to focus on the fight for now and figure out the details later, then together they quickly dispatch the undead. Frustrated by Lena's interference, Dretena commands her undead to surround Lena, isolating her so she can focus on battling Light directly. Lena's heart sinks as she notices Bork and Shara among the undead, and she can't believe the two adventurers who once guided her have also fallen. Ayla then warns Lena to be careful, explaining that Bork and Shara still possess their skills. Shara can use Mirror Strike, attacking with mirror images on both sides, while Bork's nail extension sharpens his claws and boosts his stamina. The two undead then attack Lena, and though she parries their strikes, their relentless assault keeps her on edge. Dretena, annoyed by Ayla's interference, decides to take her out first. She sends one of her undead after Ayla, but Light saves her just in time. However, this leaves Light surrounded by more undead, and he wonders how he's supposed to protect Ayla while fighting. But despite the frequent attacks, he manages to slay the undead, though their persistence leaves him exhausted. Meanwhile, Lena continues her fight with Bork and Shara, dodging their powerful attacks but hesitating to strike back even when she knows she has to kill them. Then she remembers how they were the first to help her when she arrived in the Holy City. They had been the first to welcome her, teaching her how to be a better adventurer and encouraging her to rise to rank A and even higher. Then as the fight drags on, Lena tries to check on Light and Ayla but can't see them through the chaos. Realizing she needs to end the fight quickly, she targets the threads controlling Bork and Shara. With a swift strike, she cuts the magical strings, and for a brief moment, their souls appear before her. They smile at Lena, urging her to end their suffering and continue her journey as an adventurer for their sake. With tears in her eyes, Lena raises her weapon and delivers the final blow, freeing their souls. Meanwhile, Light continues fighting the undead while protecting Ayla, frustrated by their seemingly endless numbers. He wonders how so many of them could exist in an abandoned manor. He asks Ayla if necromancy can create undead, but she quickly tells him that it can't because it only controls the undead already present in the area. Light realizes that something doesn't add up. This isn't a graveyard, so there shouldn't be enough bodies for this many undead. Convinced there's a reason for this, he asks Ayla to use her appraisal skill to investigate. Dretena notices their exchange and thinks they're surprisingly observant, but Ayla's skill is starting to irritate her. She sends another wave of undead to attack Ayla, but Light saves her again. He furiously calls Dretena a coward for targeting a child, but Dretena is unimpressed and says that she doesn't care what he thinks. The undead then closes in on them, and Light realizes that staying defensive won't work. He knows that if he focuses only on protecting Ayla, they'll lose. Thinking quickly, he devises a plan and combines with Ayla so he can fight back. Dretena laughs mockingly at their teamwork, confident in her control of the battlefield, but Light glares at her and promises that she won't be laughing for long. Elsewhere, the Holy Sister stares into her magic mirror with a grave expression. In the reflection, she sees a shadow creeping over the moon. Her aide, noticing her unease, asks what she saw. She replies that the shadow is devouring the moon and warns that not even the Priory would stand a chance against what is coming. Meanwhile, Lena carves through the undead with desperate precision, racing to reach Light and Ayla as she senses their peril. Then we see Light surrounded by a massive army of undead, urging Ayla to figure out how they keep appearing, as it's clear Dretena isn't summoning them herself. Using her appraisal skill, Ayla begins analyzing the undead adventurers, but the sheer number of them makes it nearly impossible to pinpoint anything useful. Realizing she needs a better vantage point, she tells Light she needs an overhead view. And without hesitation, Light leaps into the air and grabs onto a chandelier, holding it steady as Ayla examines the better perspective. And as the duo examines the horde below, Dretena watches from the shadows, her smug demeanor suggesting she's confident they won't uncover her secret. However, Light's endurance isn't infinite, and he struggles to hold on, urging Ayla to hurry before his grip gives out. Ayla eventually identifies a special undead hidden among the swarm. This particular figure is using the summon skill to endlessly bring forth more undead. Judging from its appearance, Light deduces that this creature was once the Count of Montes, the original owner of the manor. Dretena, finally catching on to their plan, begins to panic slightly, though her delayed realization hints at her lack of sharpness, probably why she's so good at controlling brainless undead. She then devises a plan to intervene before they uncover everything. Suddenly, a Soul Reaper materializes on the top floor balcony, his ominous presence sending chills through the air. Ayla then quickly uses her appraisal skill and discovers that the Soul Reaper's attacks can turn living beings into undead through its scythe or sludge-like energy. Ayla then shouts a warning to Light just as the Soul Reaper strikes. So Light narrowly dodges the attack and uses the momentum to land safely on the ground below. The Soul Reaper then retreats to Dretkena's side, confirming that she is the one controlling this formidable creature. Dretkena, with a smug grin, explains how she managed to acquire such a monster. She recounts how, when the Count was alive, he summoned the Soul Reaper, but the plan backfired. The powerful creature turned on its summoner, killing him and transforming him into one of the undead. And when Dretkena arrives, she easily seized control of both the Soul Reaper and the rest of the undead with her necromancer skills. Light then pieces together the grim puzzle, the missing adventurers, and the tragedy surrounding the manor. It was the Soul Reaper's doing, orchestrated by Dretkena. She confirms his suspicions with cruel satisfaction, detailing the horrors she caused. But one question troubles Light. Why would a celebrated hero like the Count summon such a dangerous monster in the first place? Dretkena then scoffs at his naivety, mocking his belief in the Count's heroism. She reveals the truth. The Count was never the hero everyone thought he was. He possessed a taboo summoning skill, a rare and forbidden power. At first, it earned him praise, but as fear and paranoia grew, people began to see him as a threat because they worried he might turn his powers against them. The government and the people, driven by mistrust, accused him of treason without proof. Betrayed and isolated, the Count fled to the manor, hoping for peace in exile. But even there, the rulers sent assassins to eliminate him. Desperate to survive, the Count summoned the Soul Reaper for protection. The plan went horribly wrong, costing him his life and dooming countless adventurers who dared to enter the manor. As Dretkena finishes her explanation, she smiles darkly and declares it's time to end the battle. Channeling her necromancer powers, she summons dozens of undead and lurches their decayed bodies toward Light and Ayla. But before Light can finalize a plan, the Soul Reaper attacks with a wave of sludge, forcing him to shift focus and protect Ayla. He tells her that by observing the undead earlier, he noticed Dretkena uses her necromancy skill to direct their movements and choose their attack methods. This means her controlled monsters can only perform new attacks if they receive updated instructions from her. Ayla confirms his observation, and with that, Light charges forward, ready to use his sword god technique, Surge Blade. But just as he's about to execute the move, he suddenly leaps forward, catching Dretkena off guard. At the same moment, the Sword Saint Lena arrives, appearing just in time to take down the Soul Reaper before Dretkena can react. With the Soul Reaper gone, the most dangerous part of the battle is over, and now they only need to defeat Dretkena. Lena approaches her, promising to go easy for now, as she has lingering questions and needs answers. Meanwhile, Light realizes that stopping the undead means defeating the Count, so he dashes forward, slicing through the Count's body, hoping to grant his soul peace in the afterlife. As the Count crumbles, he utters his final words, warning Light that one day he too will come to despise skills. But Light dismisses the warning, vowing that he'll never end up like the Count. Dretkena refuses to accept defeat, not even letting the Count die in peace. Using her necromancy, she forces the Count to summon one last monster as he perishes. A magic circle forms above them, and a massive demon materializes, instantly consuming all the remaining undead. When the demon dragon steps into the manor, Lightsproof is horrified, while Dretkena laughs maniacally. But before she can command the dragon and turn it into her puppet, the beast lashes out with its tail, knocking her unconscious. Now facing the enormous dragon, Ayla recognizes it as a wicked dragon. Lena is stunned, revealing that she thought such creatures had ceased to exist. She explains that wicked dragons are so powerful that even the highest-ranked S-tier adventurers can't harm them. But despite the gravity of the situation, Light remains optimistic. He tells Lena and Ayla that if they combine their skills and fight together, they might just prove to be worthy opponents. But before he can raise his hopes, Ayla points out that the dragon's scales are completely immune to sword attacks. Ignoring her warning, Light leaps into the air, unleashing his sword god's maximum power on the beast. But his reckless attempt only ends with his sword shattering into pieces, and the fool nearly gets blasted back to his era of stupidity, but manages to dodge the dragon's fiery attack by sheer luck. And with no viable options, he looks to Lena for guidance. Though he briefly considers retreating, he knows turning their backs would only spell their end. As he struggles on, Lena formulates a plan to keep the dragon distracted long enough for the others to escape. Just as hope starts to fade, Ayla raises her hands, claiming she has an idea. She suggests Light eat a new skill fruit she's been saving. Light is intrigued, but meanwhile we see Dretkena lying on the ground and begins laughing hysterically, convinced that their demise is inevitable. Pleased with the chaos her leader's summoned wicked dragon has caused, she passes out, believing this to be the end for Light and his team. At that moment, a mysterious knight appears, silently retrieves Drakena's weakened body, and vanishes from the scene. Lena then questions why Ayla even has a skill fruit, and Ayla admits she thought it might come in handy someday. But the dragon doesn't give them much time to argue as it slams its massive claws into the ground near them, forcing them to act quickly. And with no other option, Light decides to eat the fruit. But before he does, Lena objects vehemently. Light, however, reassures her that he's immune to the fruit's poison, which allows him to consume as many as he needs without harm. Lena isn't convinced, worrying that a new skill might interfere with the ones Light already possesses. But Light stays firm in his decision, confident that this is their only hope of defeating the wicked dragon. He then takes the fruit from Ayla and eats it, only to be overcome by a sharp, searing pain in his chest, leaving him vulnerable. Just as the dragon strikes, Lena steps in and shields him from the attack. After that, Light orders Ayla to use her appraisal skill to check what ability he gained from the fruit. But to his dismay, he discovers that he has acquired a bug-resistant skill. Hearing how utterly useless this new skill is leaves him devastated. And while he rants, the dragon unleashes another fireball, which Lena defends against effortlessly. Unlike him, she isn't some weak fool and continues to go head-to-head with the dragon without hesitation. This gives Light time to attempt eating more fruits, desperately hoping to gain a skill strong enough to defeat the dragon. But this time, he decides to eat 2 fruits at once to save time. And as expected, his reckless gamble results in 2 more laughable skills: Cat Charmer and Weapon Durability Boost. The second skill might have been useful if his sword wasn't already shattered during his earlier pathetic attempt to harm the dragon. Adding to his woes, eating 2 fruits at once leaves him with an intense headache and nausea. But despite these setbacks, Light decides to eat 1 last fruit, praying it will finally turn the tide. Meanwhile, Lena continues her brave fight against the dragon. She leaps into the air to strike it, only to have her sword snap in 2, much like her dim-witted partners. Annoyed by her interference, the dragon lashes out, slamming its tail into her and sending her crashing into a wall. Seeing Lena in trouble, Light hurriedly bites into the fruit and watches as his hands begin to glow. At the same time, the dragon closes in on Lena, preparing to deliver the finishing blow. But before it can strike, Light hurls a stone at the beast, successfully distracting it. Ayla quickly rushes to Lena's side to help her up, revealing that Light has gained a Sleep Pixie skill. This skill produces a pixie that releases scales capable of putting any creature asleep. And without wasting a second, Light summons the Sleep Pixie and throws it at the dragon. As the pixie spreads its scales, the dragon visibly struggles to stay awake. However, the effect seems weak, barely slowing the dragon down. Realizing he needs to amplify its power, Light grabs a shard of his broken sword and channels his sword god ability into it. Using the shard as a projectile, he hurls it at the roof, causing it to collapse. As rubble rains down, Light seizes the opportunity to leap into the air and close the distance. Just then, Light lands directly on the dragon's face and unleashes the full power of the Sleep Pixie, ensuring the dragon can't escape its effects. The pixie's scales finally overwhelm the beast, and it collapses, completely knocked out. And with the dragon defeated, the group rushes out of the dungeon as the entire place begins crumbling around them. This hard-earned victory leaves them satisfied, and Light eagerly suggests heading home to collect their reward and enjoy a well-deserved meal. That night, they ride back to the city as fast as their horses can carry them. When they reach the gate, the guards immediately recognize Lena and scramble to open the gates at her command. As the gates swing open, the warm lights of the city pour through, illuminating the road ahead. Ayla, seeing this sight, is awestruck by the beauty of it all. At that moment, Light turns to commend Ayla for her bravery and quick thinking during the battle. But just as he shifts to thank Lena, he suddenly falls off his horse, collapsing unconscious on the ground. The sight of him fainting sends both girls into a panic as they rush to his side, worried for his condition. Elsewhere, Dratina lies unconscious in a dimly lit room alongside the Holy Sister. The mysterious man who carried her there prepares to leave, but the Holy Sister stops him with a question. She inquires about his thoughts on the Fruit Master. So the man admits he was shocked to learn that Light had managed to defeat the wicked dragon, but reassures her that Light poses no threat to the Black Swan. Relieved by this answer, the Holy Sister watches as the man vanishes into the shadows. Once alone, the Holy Sister's calm demeanor slips, revealing her surprise at Light's unexpected strength. She muses about whether this is the power of a priory or if Light possesses some unique ability yet to be unveiled. Either way, she acknowledges that their inevitable meeting is drawing closer. The scene then shifts to Ayla tending to the garden, while elsewhere, Lena enjoys a relaxing bath. Afterward, Lena prepares lunch with Ayla assisting her in the kitchen. While cooking, Lena suddenly remembers that she forgot to water the garden that day, but Ayla reassures her that she already took care of it. Impressed, Lena compliments her on a job well done. They both reflect on how well they've been managing everything on their own and confidently agree that Light would be proud to see them handling things without him. Just then, Light enters the room, overhearing their conversation. He tells them to stop acting like he's dead, surprising them both. He explains that he just came to grab some water, but before he can do anything, they immediately lift him up and escort him back to his room. They remind him that he needs to rest, especially after consuming 4 skill fruits at once. Light, however, is baffled, revealing that he has already been unconscious for 2 days. Lena then checks his forehead, noticing that his fever has finally subsided, but she still insists that he take it easy. She then serves him lunch, urging him to eat and get proper rest. As Light is about to eat, he notices Lena and Ayla preparing to leave. Curious, he asks where they're heading. They show him a compulsory summons from the guild, explaining that they are required to give a report about the wicked dragon's appearance. Light immediately offers to go with them, but Ayla firmly refuses, reminding him that he is still recovering and needs to stay in bed, and with that, they leave him behind. Later at the guild, the receptionist informs them that the higher-ups will meet with them in 2 hours. Lena is irritated, wondering why they must wait so long despite being summoned. The receptionist explains that the guild officials are currently occupied. She then adds that Ayla won't be allowed into the conference room since she is not an officially registered adventurer. Upon hearing this, Lena decides to register Ayla right away. The receptionist hands Ayla a registration form, and as she fills it out, the nearby adventurers murmur among themselves, shocked that such a small girl is joining their ranks. Overhearing them, Ayla turns to Lena and hesitantly asks if she looks out of place. She mentions that unlike the others, she doesn't have any fancy adventurer equipment. But Lena reassures her, telling her that she belongs here just as much as anyone else. She reminds Ayla of her valuable appraisal skill and adds that it's natural for a girl her age to be concerned about her appearance. With a warm smile, she suggests they go shopping instead of sitting around waiting. Ayla hesitates, revealing that she doesn't have any money. However, Lena waves it off, telling her not to worry about it because after all, she sees Ayla as a little sister. Meanwhile, Light is growing restless at the mansion, unable to stand lying around any longer. Meanwhile, back in town, Ayla and Lena leisurely stroll through the marketplace, enjoying some ice cream as they explore. As they wander, Ayla spots an unusual shop that piques her interest and eagerly drags Lena toward it. However, Lena eyes the place warily, muttering that it looks more sketchy than interesting. Once inside, Lena immediately suggests they leave and find a less shady store, but Ayla's attention is caught by a rough, unpolished stone, and she confidently declares that it's a diamond. Lena scoffs in disbelief, but Ayla insists, explaining that her appraisal skill confirms it. Lena is stunned to learn that Ayla can appraise objects, not just people and monsters. The shopkeeper also doubts Ayla's claim, but Lena, trusting Ayla's skill, decides to buy the so-called diamond anyway. To celebrate, she strings the gem onto a necklace and places it around Ayla's neck. Afterward, she takes her to a clothing store. Upon arrival, the store owner greets Lena with excitement, delighted to see her frequent customer return. Lena explains that she's here to buy something for the little kid with her. However, before she can browse, the enthusiastic owner insists that Lena try on their newest collection, eagerly forcing her into various outfits. Flustered, Lena firmly puts an end to the dress-up session, reminding the owner that she's here for Ayla, not herself. The owner then suggests an adorable dress for Ayla, but Ayla hesitates, confessing that she doesn't want a cute outfit. She wants something cool that makes her look like a real adventurer, just like Lena. Later, the two return to the guild and Ayla successfully registers herself as an adventurer. They are soon summoned to the conference room. Back at the mansion, Light attempts some light exercise to shake off his boredom. However, the sleep fairy quickly intervenes, scolding him and demanding he rest. Light protests, arguing that he's been sleeping for 2 days and is sick of lying in bed. Ignoring his complaints, the fairy forcefully drags him back and tucks him in, pulling the blankets over him. Lying there, Light sulks, convinced that Lena and Ayla must be getting showered with praise for defeating the wicked dragon. Pouting, he grumbles that it's unfair because he deserves recognition too. Growing more determined, he decides that he'll head to the guild himself. Back at the guild, the receptionist leads Lena and Ayla toward the conference room. Along the way, she expresses her relief at having Lena there, emphasizing how crucial it is to gather as much information about the wicked dragon as possible. Lena assures her that she will do whatever she can to assist, but she clarifies that she didn't come just to share information and leave. She intends to dig deeper and uncover where Dratina came from. Lena knows that Dratina was following orders. Someone wanted them dead, and the only organization aware of their trip to the Count's manor was the Adventurers Guild. This means that whoever hired them is likely involved. With these suspicions in mind, she steels herself as they arrive outside the conference room. But before entering, she is asked to surrender her weapons, which she does reluctantly. Upon stepping inside, Ayla is immediately in awe of the sheer size of the room. The members of the 4 bureaus are informed that Lena of Luxuria has arrived. Curious, Ayla quietly asks what the 4 bureaus are, and the receptionist explains that they are the 4 major departments operating under the guild master. Each bureau has its own responsibilities, and all 4 heads are present for this briefing. One by one, the leaders are introduced. First is Tigerbeard, the head of security, a gruff man who oversees the safety of the guild and its members. Next is Flower Hat, the head of investigation, responsible for monitoring monster ecology and tracking their population density. Third is Gravekeeper, the head of finances, who manages the guild's rewards and financial matters, though his obsession with money is immediately apparent. Finally, the last introduction is the Holy Sister, the head of inspection. She then praises Lena for her work at the Count's manor and expresses relief that she made it back safely. Lena offers a polite thanks but inwardly sighs. She had hoped never to see the Holy Sister again. However, she is eager to see how the woman reacts once she brings up Drattina and the Black Swan. Ayla, still trying to make sense of it all, asks what exactly the Holy Sister's role entails. So the receptionist explains that she is the highest-ranking member of the Inspection Bureau, responsible for disciplining the other bureaus and keeping them in check. This effectively makes her the most powerful person in the guild beneath the guild master. Intrigued, Ayla attempts to appraise the Holy Sister's abilities. But to her shock, she can't see anything. No listed skills, no stats, nothing at all. The Holy Sister then asks Lena to share what she knows about the Wicked Dragon, and Lena agrees but mentions that she has a question of her own first. The Holy Sister asks what it is, and Lena explains that when they went to investigate the manor, they were attacked by a woman named Drattina from an organization called the Black Swan. She then asks if anyone in the room has heard of either name before, but none of them have. Flower Hat offers to use her skill to search the Grand Library records for any information, but Gravekeeper reminds her that accessing personal records requires permission from all 4 of them. The Holy Sister then immediately changes the subject, insisting that the Wicked Dragon should be their top priority. Seeing how quickly she redirects the conversation only fuels Lena's suspicion that the Holy Sister knows more than she's letting on. Lena stresses that they need to locate the dragon and come up with a strategy to deal with it immediately. Flower Hat then mentions that she had already sent a scouting bird to track it, but the dragon has since left the manor. However, she adds that if they had a piece of the dragon's body, she might be able to trace its whereabouts. That's when Lena remembers that she picked up a dragon scale earlier. She takes it out and shows it to everyone, and they immediately wonder what it is. Ayla then appraises it and confirms that it's a dragon scale, shocking everyone in the room. Flower Hat then steps forward, eager to examine the scale up close, clearly excited to see one for the first time, and she believes she can use it to track down the Wicked Dragon. Lena agrees to give it to them, but only on one condition. They must let her see all records related to Drattina. The request leaves the others stunned by her boldness, but Flower Hat doesn't seem to mind. Gravekeeper and Tigerbeard also raise no objections. They turn to the Holy Sister for her decision, and after a moment, she allows it but warns Lena that there's no guarantee she will find anything useful. Lena's fine with this, and Flower Hat activates her Scholar's Eye skill, scanning the vast collection of records in the Grand Library. After searching, she finds a record mentioning Drattina. She reveals that 12 years ago, in the lake capital of Athena, Drattina received a skill fruit. The fruit granted her the necromancy skill, which raises an immediate red flag for Lena. She then asks who the appraisal officer was at the time, and to no one's surprise, Flower Hat reveals that it was the Holy Sister. At that moment, Lena is absolutely certain that the 2 of them are connected, and she turns to the Holy Sister, directly asking her if she knows Drattina. The Holy Sister feigns ignorance, explaining that she grants skills to nearly 1,000 people each year, and there's no way she could remember something that happened 12 years ago. Lena realizes that pressing further won't get her anywhere, but at least now, she finally has a lead. The Holy Sister then thanks Lena for sharing the information, but immediately follows up with an announcement. Effective immediately, all records related to their party Luxuria will be erased from the guild. Lena demands to know why, and the Holy Sister reveals that Grouse has filed a formal complaint, claiming that Light unlawfully poached her from his party through an act of violence. Lena is caught off guard, and the people in the room begin looking at her with suspicion, questioning whether her party is made up of criminals. But before Lena can defend herself, the doors suddenly burst open and Light barges in, cheerfully declaring that he's here for some well-deserved praise. However, he immediately picks up on the heavy atmosphere in the room and asks what's going on. The Holy Sister informs him that his party is about to be disbanded due to violations of guild regulations. Light raises an eyebrow and asks if she even has the authority to do that. The receptionist quickly confirms that she does. Without hesitation, Light shrugs and tells her she can do whatever the hell she wants, because even if they're not officially recognized by the guild, Luxuria will always be Luxuria. His bold declaration amuses the Holy Sister, and she suddenly decides to use her skill on him. After analyzing something within him, she appears intrigued and unexpectedly changes her stance. Instead of disbanding them, she offers Light a chance to redeem himself. She declares that if he successfully completes an S-rank monster hunting quest, the party will remain intact. She also mentions that the reward will be quite generous. Lena is immediately suspicious of the Holy Sister's sudden change of heart, but the woman plays it off, claiming that Light's unwavering determination has inspired her. The others in the room nod in admiration, praising the Holy Sister for her so-called mercy. Lena urgently warns Light to think carefully before accepting, but he's already grinning ear to ear, thrilled at the chance to slay an S-rank monster. She tries once more to make him realize that this is obviously a trap, but Light doesn't care. He acknowledges that it might be, but insists that if he wants to leave his mark in history, overcoming challenges like this is the only way forward. Later, Luxuria officially receives their S-rank hunting quest, and upon reviewing the details, they quickly realize that the target is no joke. Lena warns Light not to take this lightly, emphasizing that the Holy Sister is definitely scheming something. Ayla agrees, revealing that she couldn't even appraise the Holy Sister's skills with her abilities. This surprises Lena, making her wonder why someone would go so far to conceal their true power. Light, as usual, doesn't dwell on the suspicion and simply insists that they just need to be well prepared for the battle ahead. But before they can leave, Gravekeeper approaches them, sternly informing Light that bringing the sword into the conference room is against the rules and that he now owes 1,000 gold coin fine. Light smirks and points out that his sword is already broken, meaning it's technically not a weapon anymore. Gravekeeper grumbles but acknowledges the loophole, retracting the fine. However, he then reminds Light that this is his second time breaking a guild-issued weapon, and as a result, he now owes a hefty 5,000 gold fine. Later, Light attempts to borrow another sword from the guild, but the receptionist immediately refuses, glaring at him in frustration. She informs him that anyone who breaks 2 loaned weapons is permanently barred from borrowing again. From now on, he'll have to purchase his own. She also advises him to get a custom-made sword, explaining that a weapon tailored to his unique combat style would help unlock his full potential. Light considers this and realizes that he needs a sword durable enough to withstand his sword god skill. He even fantasizes that with the right weapon, he might be able to take down the wicked dragon. Fired up, he declares that they should head straight to a blacksmith to have his sword crafted. But before he can rush off, Lena interrupts his excitement, reminding him that forging a proper weapon will take several days and they need time to prepare for the hunt. In the meantime, she wants to visit Athena to follow up on her lead regarding Drakina. Light is surprised that she intends to go alone, but Lena insists that it's urgent. She then asks Ayla to keep an eye on Light while she's gone, and Ayla agrees. Light then tells her to be careful and not do anything reckless, and with that they part ways. Meanwhile, in another part of town, a young girl is being pursued by a group of rough-looking men. Onlookers in the market watch the chase unfold, casually remarking that this sort of thing happens to her all the time. Later, we see Light and Ayla approach a guide to ask where they can have weapons forged for them, and the guide informs them that it'll be tough since most workshops in the tradesman's district favor the Holy Sister, so none would assist like Syria. Light wonders if there's anything he can do since he desperately needs a sword, and the guide suggests there's a chance at the Bolst workshop on the west side. He explains that Bolst is a legendary blacksmith, though he's been facing some issues lately. Light tunes out after hearing legendary blacksmith, getting all excited about having his sword forged there, and he requests that the guide write him a letter of introduction. Elsewhere, we notice Lena traveling by carriage to her destination, hoping that Light and Ayla are doing well. The scene then shifts to Light browsing through the tradesman's district, where he takes in all sorts of sights. Just then, they encounter the girl from earlier, who is now running from some other men and finds herself cornered. The men order her to give up, preparing to attack, but Light intervenes to save her. He remarks that it's pathetic for 3 men to gang up on a girl, and they tell him to stay out of it. Attacking him, they are met by his deft dodges as he instructs the girl to remain behind him. Though she worries for him, he assures her he'll be alright, drawing his broken sword. One of the men charges at him, but he knocks the assailant out with the hilt of his sword, sending him flying. The other 2, startled by this display, retreat with their injured friend. Light then asks the girl if she's okay, and she replies that she is fine, introducing herself as Monica. Light and Ayla also introduce themselves, and Monica comments on how cute Ayla is, confessing that she loves tiny kids. She invites them to her place to thank them, offering to treat them to pancakes. Ayla, excited by the promise of pancakes, wants to go, but Light reminds her they need to reach the Bolst workshop first. Monica then reveals that the workshop is her own, prompting them to assume she must be an apprentice. She leads the way, and they follow her until they arrive at the workshop. Once inside, Light inquires about the tradesmen, but she replies that there are none. She manages everything herself. Finally, she reveals her full name as Monica Bolst and warmly welcomes them to her workshop. They are stunned to learn that she is none other than the legendary blacksmith herself, and she's thrilled that word of her has spread. With a grin, she promises to show them her finest creation as a token of thanks for helping her out. Pulling out a frying pan with holes, she demonstrates how it produces perfectly spherical pancakes. calling it the Monica pan. She demonstrates that removing the mold converts it into a regular pan. She proceeds to display several variants of the design, mentioning that each costs $2,000 apiece. Light balks at the steep price, but Monica decides to knock 50% off for him in gratitude for saving her. Wondering if he's going to buy one, she receives his response. He prefers his pancakes whole, and the shape just doesn't matter to him. She laments that no one buys her innovative product, and she even tried selling it to those 3 guys earlier, but they accuse her of ripping them off and ended up chasing her down. Light muses that it was totally her fault for not choosing better customers, and he's surprised to discover that blacksmith shops make more than just weapons, so Monica explains that she mainly crafts household items. Light's eyes then wander to a hoe lying about, and she asks if he's interested in farming tools. He replies that he grows fruits, to which she remarks that harvesting must be a brutal chore, and he admits he does everything by hand. Glancing at his calloused hand, she decides to create the perfect tool for him. Light wonders aloud if she'll make it right in front of them, and she declares that she will, specifically as a special thanks for his earlier rescue. She then heats up the metal and deftly wields her hammer with remarkable skill. Ayla notes that she's using a technique called Super Forge, a method that endows metal with desired properties through precise hammer strikes. Light is astonished to learn this, and Monica explains that with her skill, she can effortlessly adjust the hardness of the material. Light concludes that this is the ideal talent for a blacksmith, and before long, Monica fashions a pair of harvesting shears for him. As Light inspects the shears, he realizes they fit his hand perfectly. Monica then challenges him to try cutting some firewood with them. Skeptical that such shears could slice through wood, Light gives it a shot at her insistence, and to his surprise, the shears cut right through the firewood effortlessly. Ayla questions whether Light activated his sword god skill, but Light quickly replies that he did not, and the shears were just that sharp. Impressed, he admits that she truly is a legendary blacksmith and then asks her to forge him a sword, explaining that he came here seeking the ultimate blade. She refuses his request, and when he inquires if the workshop favors the Holy Sister, she retorts that it doesn't. She simply hates swords and refuses to make them. Offering to craft other items, she listens as Light insists he really needs a sword. Monica then confesses that she recognized his need the moment she saw him with that broken blade. She reveals that she brought him here hoping to sell him her pan, and Light wonders why she is so desperate to push it. She explains that she wants to prove her worth as a tradesperson, even though she doesn't work with swords. Light recalls that the guide had told him this was a weapons workshop, but Monica clarifies that he was actually referring to the shop across the street, the other Bolt's workshop. The scene then shifts to that bustling workshop, where everyone is scrambling to meet their weekly delivery deadlines. Monica, Light, and Ayla enter, and Monica asks her father Ivel to craft a sword for Light. Ivel is incredulous that she would push customers whose demands she can't satisfy, and she argues that it's better than making weapons for disreputable merchants. He tells her to mind her own business and return to her shop, prompting her to leave while muttering that she shouldn't have come here in the first place. Light then turns to Ivel about the sword, only to learn that he's already overloaded with a major order for the next 6 months. He's advised to ask someone else, so Light departs, determined that he truly wants his sword made by Monica. Ayla suggests they try asking her again when a worker from Ivel's workshop named Kane stops Light by calling out his name. Light recalls that he never properly introduced himself, and Kane explains that he had seen Light's duel against Grouse. Kane couldn't believe that Rookie managed to defeat Grouse using nothing more than a deck brush, and from that moment on, he became a fan of Light. Light explains that because of that duel, those who support the Holy Sister have shunned him. So Kane immediately realizes that this is why Light sought them out, and he points out that Monica and her father are the only blacksmiths in the district who do not favor the Holy Sister, prompting Light to ask why they operate separate workshops. Kane then reveals that Monica once worked as a blacksmith in her own workshop, and 3 years ago, she skyrocketed to fame throughout the Holy City when she acquired her Super Forge skill. However, about 6 months ago, a supply wagon was ambushed by bandits outside of town, and Monica's grandmother, who was aboard, was killed along with the others. The Security Bureau quickly apprehended the bandits and discovered Monica's signature on the weapons they had used. Although Monica was not directly involved, the weapons had passed through several hands before reaching the bandits, so her grandmother's life was still lost because of a sword she had forged, leaving her deeply scarred. Light realizes this tragic incident is why Monica despises swords and has a strained relationship with her father. Just then, Zambo and his underling Doug arrive, calling for Ivel. Kane identifies Zambo as a merchant from the Blackbird merchant group. Zambo then mentions that he recalls seeing Light somewhere before, and Ivel approaches to inquire about his business. Zambo explains that he has more orders and presents a contract stipulating that they will purchase his weapons on a weekly basis for another year. Kane doubts they can manage so many orders since they are already struggling, and Doug adds that if necessary, he will simply have Monica take charge, praising her exceptional skill. After all, anyone dealing in weapons would be eager to acquire her work, as she can forge strong arms even from mere scraps. Light interjects, reminding them that Monica is reluctant to make swords, but Zambo insists that they will have to compel her to do so if needed. He activates his skill and Ivel evaluates it. But before matters can escalate further, Ivel tells Zambo that he will accept the order and signs the contract, so Zambo and his lackey then depart. Kane then confides that the Blackbird merchant group is using Monica as a bargaining chip to extract favorable terms from them. He explains that Ivel is being forced into these deals in order to protect Monica. Ivel then asks Light not to inform Monica of these developments, and when Light inquires why, Ivel simply responds that it isn't necessary for her to know and leaves. After the night falls, Light and Ayla arrive at Monica's workshop, where Monica insists she won't forge a sword for him. Undeterred, Light simply asks her out to dinner instead, and she agrees. The scene then shifts to show them enjoying a hearty feast together. During the meal, Monica discovers that Ayla possesses an appraisal skill, which she finds astounding, remarking that everyone in the tradesman district would be clamoring to get a piece of her if word of her talent spread. Shigem expresses a desire to have Ayla work in her shop, but Ayla explains that her heart is set on adventuring with Light, leaving no room for a tradesman life. So Monica feels that Ayla's worth is too great to be overlooked, but then she tells them to eat to their heart's content and even offers to foot the bill. Light objects, arguing that they were the ones who invited her out, but Monica insists they consider it a token of gratitude for having saved her, adding that it had been nearly half a year since she last shared a meal with anyone. With the offer on the table, Light orders an abundance of food, and Monica can't help but think he really doesn't hold back. Meanwhile, in another part of town, Zambo meets with the Holy Sister, who requests additional weapons. Zambo agrees and mentions that he spotted Light in the tradesman district earlier that day. He adds that they've already taken steps, so they should be able to present Light to her soon. Pleased by the news, the Holy Sister decides to dispatch a spy to ensure the security bureau stays out of the picture. She hopes that Zambo won't harm Light, as she needs him alive, and he concurs. Elsewhere, after returning from her meal, Monica encounters Doug, who unexpectedly kidnaps her. At the same time, Light and Ayla are heading home when Kane rushes up to them, urging them to come back to the workshop. They comply, and Kane shows them a note bearing Monica's goggles that had been stuck on the front door. Reading the note, Light discovers that Monica has been kidnapped and that he is being summoned to the underground arena on his own. One of the tradesmen explains that the underground arena serves as the stronghold of the Blackbird merchant group and is situated on the outskirts of the tradesman's district. Just then, Ivel steps out determined to rescue his daughter, but Kane intervenes, warning him that he won't be able to take on the kidnappers alone. Light then volunteers to go in his stead, since they specifically requested him, and he promptly departs. Meanwhile, inside the arena, Monica awakens to find herself chained up. She demands to know what her captors plan to do, and they coldly reply that she is merely bait intended to lure Light, so that they can capture him once he comes to rescue her. Doug adds that given her unique skill, she will be forced to forge weapons for them for the rest of her life. Just then, Light bursts into the arena, and his solitary arrival prompts his captors to sneer, convinced he is foolish for coming alone. In response, they unleash a rampaging Taurus, and it's a massive bull-like monster. Doug taunts him, claiming that between the furious bull and their combined might, Light is doomed to be slaughtered. Yet Light remains calm and summons a sleep fairy, casting a spell that sends both the Taurus and his enemies into a deep slumber. Monica, bewildered by the sudden turn of events, is then freed from her chains by Light, who tells her it's time to head home, and she feels that she now owes him 2 favors. The scene then shifts to their return to the workshop, where they find Light carrying Monica. Ivel then rushes over and asks if she's alright, to which Light replies that she's fine, and she just merely inhaled some lingering sleep pixie scales and will eventually wake up. Ivel shakes his head, remarking that his daughter is quite the troublemaker, while Light gently lays her down in the workshop, and Ivel thanks him sincerely for saving Monica. Elsewhere, a little boy approaches the Holy Sister and questions whether it's truly necessary to allocate so many resources to Light. The Holy Sister, in a tone mixing curiosity with authority, reveals that she wants to determine whether Light is truly the legendary Priory. The scene then shifts to Zambo as he makes his way back to his company, and he can't help but recall the Holy Sister's orders to capture Light alive. He wonders if Light is truly that valuable. When he finally arrives at his company's hideout, he expects that by now Light must have fallen into one of his traps. Instead, all he finds are his lackeys fast asleep. Next, the narrative cuts to Bolth's workshop, where Ivel offers an apology for having dragged Light into their chaotic situation. Light is unbothered by the inconvenience, casually remarking that both he and Monica were after him anyway. Ivel then announces that he will be severing ties with the Blackbird merchant group. Although this decision will cause their income to plummet to zero for the time being, he insists that safety must come first. Soon after, Monica comes downstairs despite her mother's insistence that she rest. She asks her father if he plans to stop making weapons now, to which he replies that he simply can't. Instead, he's determined to find another worthy buyer. He explains that among all forged products, weapons hold a value on an entirely different level, a truth he believes Monica should understand. He further insists that ceasing weapon production would mean closing down the workshop entirely, and he takes great pride in the skills he has honed over the past 25 years, so there's no room for compromise. Monica then questions whether he's truly comfortable with his talents being used for evil, and the question visibly drains her strength. Her mother suggests that she get some rest for now and postpone the discussion for later, a proposal that Monica reluctantly accepts. Ivel then recommends that Light spend the night at the workshop since it's already late. Though Light hesitates at first, the other's insistence convinces him, and he consults Ayla. A drowsy Ayla simply tells him to accept their offer, and so he does. Later, Monica's mother guides Light and Ayla toward their room. As they walk, Light comments that the place appears to be thriving. Monica's mother beams and explains that everyone here adores the boss and dreams of working for him forever. In a teasing tone, Light asks if she also makes weapons, to which she laughs and replies that she's merely a housewife. She explains that this is why she stays out of her husband's and Monica's disputes. She hardly ever gets involved. Light, however, points out that isn't entirely the case, noting that Monica speaks just like her, so she does have an impact. He urges her to be more confident, and her smile reveals that his encouragement has touched her heart. Later, Light is seen talking with Monica as she stands alone, gazing into the distance, and he notes that she appears to be all right now. She explains that the sleeping powder has completely worn off from her system and asks how Ayla is doing. Light tells her that Ayla is still asleep, adding that she must be very tired from waiting outside all that time while he went to rescue her. Monica feels that Ayla is a good girl, and then Light asks what she is holding in her hand. She reveals that it is the very first dagger she ever forged, explaining that when her father, who rarely offers any praise, saw it, he told her she possessed a natural gift for blacksmithing. That compliment made her incredibly happy, and Light is not surprised that she had shown talent in smithing since childhood. Monica adds that when she acquired the super forge skill, she believed she was destined to be a blacksmith, but now she is not entirely sure. Light remarks that it is clear she holds her father in high regard, and she confirms this by saying that he has taught her many skills, and that she has watched him expand the workshop by taking in more students. He wonders if perhaps she struggles to reconcile with him, and she confesses that for her, blacksmithing was originally about receiving praise, making others happy, and earning money. It was simply something that delighted her. But after her grandmother died, she realized it meant far more. By that time, she had already sent several swords out into the world, and she grew fearful of forging anymore. This is why she can no longer remain in the same workshop as her father. Then she asks Light if he has ever killed someone. He admits that he has, explaining that his victims were undead beings who were once human. He says that at first he was at a loss, thinking he couldn't do it, but he decided not to hesitate in order to protect Ayla. Monica then confesses that she is no longer sure whether swords are inherently good or evil, asking if he uses his sword for righteous purposes. He responds that he does, but adds that his idea of good might differ from hers. He asks her if she believes it is proper for an adventurer to cut down his enemies, and though she is not completely certain, she admits that she admires it when people work hard to achieve their dreams. Meanwhile, at the Blackbird merchant hideout, Doug awakens bound in chains and demands to know what the hell is going on. Zambo replies that this is exactly how he found him, and then asks if Dub plans to do anything after being so humiliated. In response, Dub declares he won't stay silent, prompting Zambo to announce that he already has a freaking plan in place and informs everyone that they will move at dawn. The scene then shifts to the morning, where Ayla wakes Light, announcing that breakfast is ready. Light heads downstairs and tries to sit at the dining table, but Monica's little brother stops him, insisting that the seat beside him is reserved for Monica. Their mother explains that it is Monica's designated seat, kept open so she can return at any time. Light inquires about Monica's whereabouts, and she guesses that she must be in her room, asking him to deliver her breakfast once they have finished eating. Subsequently, Light and Ayla deliver Monica's breakfast and ask what she is doing in the garden. Monica explains that she wanted to help her parents make up for the worry she caused them the other day, and since she doesn't feel like going to the workshop, she is tending to yard work. When Light asks if they are growing anything, she replies that they are, but the harvest is poor. Intrigued, Light decides to inspect the garden and uses his Fruit Master skill to encourage the plants to grow. Surprisingly, Monica asks if that was indeed a skill, and Light confirms that it is his Fruit Master ability. Monica is confused and wonders how he managed to put the Blackbird merchants to sleep yesterday. He explains that it was also accomplished with a skill, stating that Fruit Master allows him to eat as many fruits as he desires. Skeptical that such a thing is possible, she remains unconvinced, and before he can elaborate further, a loud noise interrupts them. They rush to the workshop only to discover that it is under attack by the Blackbird merchants. Monica demands to know what Zambo has done, and he replies that he simply zapped them because they wouldn't let him through. In a startling moment, he zaps her father right in front of her, and then tells Light that they should take this fight outside. The scene then shifts to the outdoors where Light summons his sleep fairy, commanding it to put Zambo to sleep. The sleep fairy releases its sleep powder, but Zambo quickly wraps himself in his lightning armor, nullifying the powder's effects. He boasts that he's going to wreak havoc on both Light and the workshop, and he launches an assault with his crackling lightning. Ayla observes that he possesses an ability called Thunder Charge, which lets him gather lightning around himself and discharge it in a burst. He attacks the workshop again, and Light decides to take a more aggressive stance. Dismissing the sleep fairy, he orders Monica and Ayla to step back, while Zambo sneers that he will make Light pay for destroying the expensive doors to his hideout. Light grumbles that it was his own fault for kidnapping Monica, and Zambo retorts that he desperately needs her talents to forge high-quality weapons from low-grade materials, believing she can create something remarkable compared to the makeshift swords he's stuck with. In a fit of disdain, he stomps on his current sword, declaring it nothing but inferior garbage. Monica protests, reminding him that the craftsman at the store put considerable effort into crafting those weapons, but Zambo dismisses her, stating that as a merchant, he never gets attached to his merchandise. Light then tells him to step aside. Zambo ignores Light's plea, commanding him and Monica to surrender so that he won't have to destroy anything further. Light retorts that he intends to capture Zambo and hand him over to the security bureau, and he charges at him. However, Zambo dodges nimbly, and Light quickly retrieves the sword from the ground. Determined not to let Zambo trample over the workshop or his cherished weapon, Light attacks again, but Zambo's well-honed lightning barrier prevents him from getting close. Undeterred, Zambo retaliates by hurling lightning balls at Light. Although Light manages to deflect several of them, the metal projectiles still injure him. Curious, Light inquires about the nature of these missiles, and Zambo reveals that they are metal balls, declaring that he isn't about to give him an easy victory. He attacks with the metal balls again, and Light, unable to predict their trajectory, takes more damage. Monica suddenly gets an idea and calls over Ayla, asking her to analyze what the metal balls are composed of. Ayla examines one and confirms they're made of iron. Quickly, she uses her skill to craft an object and tosses it over to Light, instructing him to use it. When Light catches it, he immediately recognizes it as her signature frying pan, initially wondering if she's hinting at making pancakes, but she explains that it's meant to catch those iron balls. Unsure of her exact meaning, Light is interrupted as Zambo resumes his assault, and this time the metal balls adhere to the pan. Monica then explains that she had enchanted the frying pan with an ability to attract iron, a revelation that surprises Zambo, but the pan still conducts lightning and ends up injuring Light. Light reassures her that he's grown accustomed to the onslaught of these balls, but Monica quickly notices that his sword is chipped and unlikely to hold up much longer. Knowing he desperately needs a stronger weapon, yet unable to forge one herself, Light is hurled against a wall beside her. He then instructs Ayla and Monica to retreat while he vows to hold out until the security bureau arrives. Gathering his resolve, Light charges at Zambo once more, and witnessing his determination to protect the workshop, Monica wonders if there's really nothing more she can contribute. Recalling their conversation from the previous night, she urges Ayla to accompany her, hoping they might be able to devise a plan together. Meanwhile, far away at the West Urumba Plateau, Lena arrives at her final stop, known as the Blue Deer Station. The driver informs her that the carriage won't travel any further and that she'll have to proceed on foot. He is taken aback to see a young girl traveling alone. Lena explains that she has urgent business ahead. Noticing the bustling crowd, the driver reveals that it's the season of the Athena Fairy Festival and asks if she's come for the festival as well. But Lena replies that she's simply in search of someone, and she sets off alone, hopeful that she will eventually find Dratina. Meanwhile, Light charges at Zambo once more, but his assault is immediately halted by a crackling lightning barrier. In response, Zambo decides to spice up the duel by forming his own weapon, a sword made entirely of compressed lightning, which forces Light to fall back for a moment. When Light renews his attack, he is surprised to find that the lightning sword feels as solid as forged steel. Smirking, Zambo explains that even formless lightning can simulate hardness when tightly compressed. Light is taken aback by this revelation, and he believes it gives him the edge in a sword fight. He charges again, but this time his own blade slices right through Zambo's ethereal sword. Seizing the opportunity, Zambo counters by launching an attack. He boasts that his blade is a unique fusion of lightning and steel, and whether it makes contact with Light's weapon depends solely on him. Determined to overpower his foe, Light vows to push his sword god skill to its ultimate limit and attacks once more. However, Zambo skillfully employs his martial arts techniques to deflect the blows, leaving Light to think that his opponent appears invulnerable. Refusing to yield, Light swings his sword in a wild flurry, but every strike is expertly blocked by Zambo. Undeterred, Light then channels the wind pressure generated by his sword strikes to propel Zambo backward, sending him flying for a moment. This only enrages Zambo further, and he resolves to get serious by summoning a fearsome lightning beast he calls Jubitus. He unleashes Jubitus against Light, whose attempts to disperse the creature with gusts, but it proves futile. But as Light barely manages to hold the beast at bay, Zambo seizes the chance to launch another assault with his lightning blade from behind, ultimately knocking Light down. Elsewhere, hidden behind a workshop window, we see Monica telling Ayla that she is determined to rescue her father and the others, and also she'll even forge a new sword for Light. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the next part.